What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of IoT All the Things. In this episode, we will discuss how you can flex your data muscles with AWS IoT services. I am Neil Mitra, Senior Solutions Architect with AWS, and joining me today.
I'm Raghu Pelutla. I'm a product manager in the AWS IoT organization, and I'm responsible for one of the services we're going to cover today. It's called AWS IoT Events.
And I'm Peter McGuire, Chief Technology Officer of EcoFit Networks. We're heavy users of AWS, and we're using a lot of the IoT services. And I'll be going into a demo of how we're using AWS IoT Events.
That's awesome. So, if you have noticed, you see that I'm still celebrating Father's Day. So, welcome to all the dads. Wish you all a belated Happy Father's Day. So in addition to celebrating our Father's Day, what else we're going to do here in the next 1 hour? We'll start with a quick overview of AWS IoT services, just in case you are not familiar with it. And then we will talk about IoT data services, especially AWS IoT events that Raghu mentioned about. And then we'll learn from our customer, Peter over here, on the IoT solutions that they're building using various AWS services. We'll discuss their architecture in depth, and that will be followed by a demo as well. And you can see some fancy hardwares on the table. We'll also be telling you what they are all about. Sounds exciting? Let's get started. If you're here, you already, the slides? Yeah. So if you're here, you already know the potential of Internet of Things. Don't tell this to anyone, but IDC stated there will be more than $1 trillion worldwide technology spend on IoT applications in the next few years. So we have to build a lot of IoT applications together. But building IoT applications can get complex because it's multidimensional. You can see there are different layers over here, right? You have the edge layer where you need to onboard your devices, provision devices, manage your devices. Then you have the communication layer where we talk about all the different kinds of connectivity, whether it's over Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or LoRa or Sigfox or different other kind of connectivities as well. And then you ingest all your data in the cloud because you want to get some business insight from your data. You are not doing all this stuff for fun, right? So you build your data lake, you run your analytics, you run your reporting, you make this data available to different consumers through the applications that you build on top of it. And also you have the management applications as well, like how you are patching your devices over the air, how you are organizing your devices. So all those different stuff. Next slide. And thus, in the last few years, we had been working backwards. We had been continuously listening to your feedback, and we developed different services across different layers. We had services at the edge layer, we had services at the control layer, and we also have services at the data layer. In today's session, though, we'll primarily focus on the data services layer. If you want to learn more about the edge layer and the control services layer, feel free to check our other webinars and tech talks and different sessions in YouTube. Okay, so in terms of data services layer, we have three different services. The first one is IoT Analytics. It's a managed service that can help you process huge volume of IoT data without a lot of coding effort. So what you can do, you can process all this data, which could be noisy, which could be unstructured, and you can generate meaningful insight from the data very quickly. Then we have IoT Sitewise, which is a managed service again that we build for industrial use cases. So if you have lots of equipments with SCADA and PLCs and MES, and you want to liberate all this data and take advantage of the scale of cloud, how do you do it? That's where IoT Sitewise helps you. And then we have IoT Events, which is a managed service again, which makes it easy for you to easily detect operations data and do different use cases like condition monitoring and predictive maintenance that we'll dive deeper into. With that as a background, let's talk a little bit about EcoFit, Peter. So
Sure.
Tell us about yourself.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm currently Chief Technology Officer at EcoFit. I started with this group, it was about 8 years, maybe 9 years ago.
Okay.
And I was their first engineer. And it was kind of this classic startup story where we were literally in a garage. right?
Wow.
So this garage wasn't heated. It was in the winter. It was cold. And what we started out producing was not so much this product, but very similar. It was for fitness member tracking. So that allowed users to log on to a system when they got to the piece of fitness equipment, track their workout, and then have that workout delivered up to our cloud infrastructure, which at the time was not AWS.
Okay.
Something totally different, something totally unscalable. So what we found was there were a lot of big players in that area. It wasn't a super hot market. We did find a much hotter and much more open market in the asset management of that fitness equipment.
Uh-huh.
So if you imagine big gym chains like 24 Hour Fitness, UFC has great gyms, Gold's, these guys spend so much money on their fitness equipment, like crazy amounts. Like that's their number one expenditure. And they want to be able to track that equipment, figure out what's going on with it. They want to know when it goes down instead of having to just send texts out, which is expensive. And they want to know what is really popular, right? So what should they be buying? They buy every maybe 4 or 5 years. This next buying cycle, what should they be actually buying?
Yep.
So we take all of that data, we take utilization data in through, really we just put sensors on the equipment. So I don't know if the camera can see this, but this is our sensor right now. We have a new one coming out at the end of the year.
That's cool.
These are radio transmission sensors. They hook up to the fitness equipment via a connection. It's like a serial connection with some power on it. That radio transmits back to a receiver. You can see the receiver on the desk right here. It looks like a router. It's not really a router. That uses our proprietary wireless protocol. So you can have up to 500 devices connected to one gateway in a gym, all delivering that utilization data continuously back to that gateway. Initially, when we moved over to AWS, this was a little bit before IoT was really even a thing, right? We were doing EC2 instances. We're grabbing all that data, sending it by API to the cloud again, storing it there, generating reports, sending out information to high priority customers, right? Now, since AWS has been pushing into the IoT space and making all these great tools that we've just talked about, we have started to implement those tools to not only make our data streams a little bit more dependable, but also a little bit more real time. So now we're able to not only just do dumps maybe once an hour, we've got that whole IoT core, Greengrass, IoT events combination. And now we can drive the state of that equipment in real time up to the cloud. And then if something happens to that equipment, or if something happens even to our gateway in the facility, the appropriate person will receive a notification.
That's awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
So awesome, a lot more power than our system used to have. And I'm sure we'll touch on this later on. There's more stuff that we'll be doing with it.
Yes.
So
That's
so it
really
look.
good to hear.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's great. I mean, it's a great story. Like, how you started from essentially the bare bones setup that you guys had all the way up to your IoT journey.
Yeah.
That's very fascinating to hear.
Great journey.
Like,
Yeah. So you talked about all these different components. Like it looks like you are building an end-to-end solution, right? You have embedded devices, you have routers on the edge, and then you have all these applications, data lake on the cloud as well.
That's right.
So can you talk a little more about to our viewers about the different use cases that you are also supporting, like how it is helping all the different fitness industry customers in terms of predictive maintenance or asset monitoring? Would you like to add more to that?
Well, we could actually. I'm wondering if we could switch over to my laptop, if that's possible right now.
Sure.
This is actually our landing page for our corporate site.
There you go.
And this is our portal right here. So the primary delivery method for most of our users is through our portal.
Okay.
And in the portal, what a user will see when they land, they'll see all of their equipment organized into locations. Right? So different countries, different states or regions of those countries, cities, so on and so forth. Right? And they will see as they drill down, they can take a look. I'll take a look, say, at California, as California is, huge for us.
I see.
There's a lot of fitness facilities in California, a lot of good
People
ones.
are,
So
people are already fitness conscious there.
they
huh?
love it there. And there's a lot of land that you can develop on. There's 24-hour fitness. Here's the 24-hour fitness facility. And a user coming into this portal to go to their fitness facility, and this user might be like an executive
Okay.
who's taking a look at the overall health of all of their facilities and getting an idea. This user may be a tech as well, who's looking at the facility that they're responsible for.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the primary thing actually that they're usually interested in is facility health, right? So there's a chart right here that says facility health. What that means is there's 89 good pieces of fitness equipment. Good meaning that the status is good, people have been using it, doesn't look like it's broken, there's no indication of that.
Yeah.
And then there's one in check. That means that probably that fitness equipment needs there's a couple in check.
Yeah.
That fitness equipment needs some attention.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's a direct feed for the customer. We have a couple of different customers for maintenance and for general usage.
Sure. And different
Nice.
kind of equipments also you have, like the cardio machines and
That's
it
right.
could be other equipments as well.
That's right. Yeah, we started out with cardio machines with this sensor.
Yeah.
We have a new sensor coming out that's battery powered, and that captures the rest of it, which is
Okay.
great because that's like 50% more of the market that we can capture there.
Yeah.
And our customers are really interested in tracking that information as
That's
well.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all this is possible because you are now able to capture all these operational events
Yes.
from all the equipments using the sensors and the gateways you have.
Yeah.
And that is now coming through the cloud
Yeah.
and using IoT data services.
Yes.
So that you can quickly get inside without much coding and stuff,
Yep.
right?
Initially, we were using EC2 instances. Then we jumped over to like a pure Lambda infrastructure for serverless. Now we're moving heavily into the IoT Events managed services. So we're moving with the times, and we're seeing a lot of benefit from it too,
that's good.
and the ability to develop quite fast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll dive deep into this architecture, Peter, but before that, we'll let out Raghu talk to our viewers, like
thing.
what is this magic sauce under this new service, AWS IoT Events, how it helps
Yep.
different customers.
That sounds good. So let me just explain real quick on what IoT Events is about. So we launched IoT Events as a limited preview at reInvent last year,
Sure.
and then we just went GA last month at the Chicago Summit. And just like at a high level, IoT Events is really built as a managed service to essentially to detect and respond to events. So any IoT events that you get from your equipment, if it's like asset monitoring data that Peter was talking about,
Sure.
or if it is any equipment failure type of data in an industrial context, you could use all those different use cases, and you can meet those needs with the IoT event. So what the service is about is essentially it is a set of artifacts that we have built into the service, in which you can create these primitives called inputs.
Okay.
Essentially, these are the inputs. Essentially, these are the telemetry data that you are sending from your IoT equipment into the service, into the cloud, and you use that data and you use what is called a construct called the conditional logic that you built with the service, and then with that you can use that conditional logic to trigger events. And Peter, you're quite familiar with that. So the idea is like you build what are called a detector models that will model the state machine of your equipment, whether it's in good condition, bad condition, broken condition, so on and so forth.
Sure.
And what you do is you want to take an action when they are in each one of those conditions. You can do that. That's all built as part of the system, as
Okay.
part of the product.
So can customers now use their existing IoT solutions? For example, if they're currently using IoT Core, let's say,
Yes.
is it possible to use their existing solutions, or it would be for new workloads only?
No, that's a good question. So it is meant for IoT Core has a specific purpose wherein it enables customers to connect their IoT devices
Sure.
to the cloud, and makes that it's a connectivity solution, right?
Yeah.
So when you have that data, there is a direct integration from services like IoT Core and IoT Analytics, which is the other service that you mentioned,
Yeah.
to kind of integrate that directly into IoT events so that you can use the data that's coming through IoT core and use the conditional logic that I mentioned to trigger actions. So you could certainly do that.
That's great.
Yeah. So the other aspect of it that I kind of just getting into the details real quick here is we have, as I mentioned, again, ingest data from your telemetry data from wide variety of devices. In this case, I think EcoFit is using IoT Core as their connectivity solution, and then directly. But you can also use APIs directly using what we call as a batch put API to be able to get data directly into events as well. So that's another way of getting the data and using the service in that regard. The another aspect of it is the service is actually stateful, and it can actually manage states of your devices at scale. So I think when you are talking about, especially in the consumer context, when you're talking about thousands or in some situations millions of devices, being able to kind of automatically fire what are called these detectors that you can instantiate. By defining a simple detector model is a pretty powerful situation, right? So wherein the way you do this is you define a detector model, and that will, like I said, it models the state diagram of your state machine, and you evaluate the logic and you trigger actions, as I mentioned. But as you're doing that, you publish that detector model that you have defined. And then as you are getting, like I was saying, at scale, maybe 1 million devices that are sending the data to this detector model, those detector instances automatically get instantiated. So it's a powerful way of actually managing entire fleets of devices in a very simple manner. So that's pretty powerful.
That's awesome.
So just want to go through the use cases real quick in terms of where what we're seeing customers use IoT events for. One of them is condition monitoring. So in terms of when both in an industrial context or in an enterprise context, we are seeing customers wanting to use essentially a simple going from a simple logic like if it crosses a threshold. You can trigger action. So some simple thresholds like that, as well as if you want to make some time-based type of logical workflows that you want to do, that's built into the system that can enable you to do. For example, in here I mentioned if you want to monitor equipment and trigger an action or send an alert to some technician if some fault has happened in the last 5 minutes or something like that, you could do that with the IoT event. So that will eliminate, for example, in this particular case, any false positives. You don't want to just take an action with one bad reading, for example. So you could do that as part of the detector model.
Very important.
Yep. The second one, which Peter alluded to already, which is the asset maintenance use case, wherein we are seeing customers monitor their assets, and then if there is a need for any maintenance that you can do, that can be done. And when I mentioned IoT analytics earlier, there are actually, you can do more sophisticated inputs as well, right? So what I mean by that is you could get not only data from your IoT sensors and the telemetry data, but also you could get some more advanced data, like if you want to, for example, use IoT analytics to ingest that data and give some sort of a probabilistic input into your detector model as an input and use it as part of your logic. You could potentially do that as part of this kind of a use case where you not only are reading it from the sensors, but also from applications and other AWS services. So that's another nice thing about the service here.
So what you were alluding to is there are essentially two different kinds of data, right? One is the telemetry data that you are capturing from sensors and actuators, and then you also have the operational data. So you have a way now to bring both these different kinds of data and enriching your ultimate business outcome based on what you are trying to do.
That's correct. Right? Yep, exactly. And then actually that's also highlighted in this next use case where we're talking about connected products. So customers, actually that's one of the things that you also talked about, Peter, where the customers are trying to make a decision of how their products are being used, and then maybe make their decision about what they're going to purchase in terms of capex investment, right? So it's similar to that, but even in other situations where we have seen this particular use case is when you have a consumer-oriented product where a customer wants to see, for example, how the device that they have sold to a consumer, whether it's like a battery or something that they might have sold to a customer, like a power wall or something like that, where They want to see how the customer is charging it, how the customer is, how the product is behaving in terms of that customer's environment, right? They could get that data using IoT events and then make next generation product decisions based on that data that they're receiving. So we are seeing some customers that are also doing these kinds of use cases.
Can we see some of this in action today?
Yes. So
Okay.
after I go through this real quick here, so
Yeah.
the last one I just wanted to highlight is another interesting use case is when customers want to build dashboards. So this is again, this is not just an alerting notification
Sure.
mechanism, but also customers want to subscribe to essentially a topic,
Yeah.
wherein they will use that information to a downstream application where, it could be as simple as a web app that could be taking this data and then being able to put a monitoring dashboard for, in the case of in an industrial, it could be a plant technician that wants to see this dashboard, or in a lab environment, it could be a lab operator that wants to see this dashboard. So
Yeah.
we're seeing use cases where, they're using IoT events as the way that they can get more relevant data on these dashboards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So now that you've asked the question, Neil, so let me go to a quick demo here on how IoT events work. So let me quickly change screens here from the PowerPoint to my browser. So when you go to IoT events, let me just quickly do that here. I'm logging onto the console and clicking on the IoT Events console. So this is your screen that you will see as a user when you go to IoT Events. And then what you do is, I mentioned the concept of a detector model. So what you do is you can create a detector model. So I'm going to show both from the CLI as well as the console, but let's go to the console real quick here. So what we have given is, to make it easier for the developers to use the service, we actually created a couple of new things apart from what we already had in terms of a blank canvas as part of the limited preview period. So as part of GA, what we provided is something called a demo application. So what I'm going to show you is the sample application that actually shows the end-to-end working of the service. So if I just click on that launch demo,
This was really helpful, by the way.
good to hear. And we see that
To
customers are
understand
always
how to use that. It really helped.
Yeah, that's good to
Yeah.
hear. That's always good to get customer feedback on
Yeah.
such things, right? So what we did here is when I clicked on that, create demo, is that it created what we call as the inputs. As I mentioned before, the input is essentially a port to get that telemetry data from your devices, right? And then we also created the detector model, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then so this is just text about what this demo application is about, and you have essentially your first detector model that you can use to start monitoring essentially 3 states here, whether your device is in a charging state, in a charge state, or a discharging state, right? And you can read through the details about what this demo is about, but you basically have published the detector model at this point, right?
Really
So,
helpful.
and you could potentially make changes to these states. You want to add a new state, you could do that, for example.
Okay.
All you have to do is do that, and then add a new state, and then line up arrows to that, and you can do that. And then you publish the detector model based on that.
Okay.
I'm not going to do that right now in the
And can you add actions, like what needs to be done in each of the state? Can you customize that too?
Absolutely. So you go to one of the states,
Yeah.
and then the way you add actions is when you basically create add event, and then you add an action here. In
Oh,
this
that's
case, you
cool.
have options to do like SNS, MQTT. We are coming up with a lot more. There is a concept of timers and variables. It's probably a little bit out of scope for this
Sure.
session, but certainly, feel free to look into the documentation. These are 2 powerful constructs within the service that you could use for a variety of use cases like heartbeat or, essentially condition monitoring types of use cases. Yeah.
And since you have SNS, it can act as a glue to invoke Lambda function if you want to build some kind of custom.
That's a great point. Yes,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
You can use
Okay.
SNS as that mechanism, as well as MQTT. You can go to IoT
True.
Core and trigger a whole bunch of other things
Right.
as well. That's a
Yeah,
good point.
very interestingly, like one of my customers recently, they asked me that question. We had been managing all this operational data so far with the rules engine, and we are triggering all the different Lambda functions and stuff. So why do we need to use another new service. So now you are showing that all the state machine that you can build and drag and drop and then publish it.
Exactly.
It makes our life so much easier, right?
That's exactly right, and it's a managed service, and it can do this at scale, and
Yeah.
it is also a stateful service. So I think you have these when you're making it easier for your customers, like you said, with
Yeah.
a simple drag and drop. You really have to think about essentially any complex event detection use case. It can be accomplished with a fairly straightforward sequence of steps to be able to accomplish that in IoT events.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's great. And for our developers though, since many of our viewers here are developers, do we also offer CLI?
Yes,
and
we do. So
easy way to create model using standard formats like JSON and stuff.
absolutely. So
Okay.
before I get there, I'll take one more minute to show that detector model is shown up here, the one that we just created.
Sure.
And what you can do is, so I want to just explain the concept of a detector instance here, right? Which is essentially when you have published your detector model, you get instances that you can see here as soon as you start sending data. So in this
Yeah.
particular case, I'm going to send data right here to say send data for charging. This was built as part of the demo
Okay.
detector model, and you can see as soon as I send that data, you will see a detector right there.
Ah.
And when I talk about scale, all I have to do is click one more time, and if I want to create one more detector, and they're all essentially indexed by the Powerwall ID, all you have to do is just make a different ID,
Okay.
and then you have two detectors now. So what I'm trying to show is, it's really that you define your detector model,
Yeah.
and then you can scale pretty much instantaneously and to a really large number. That's what we're
Right.
talking about. Yeah, that's the power of the system. So that's a gist of it on the console side. Now, how like you asked a question about how you would do it from a CLI and what's the CLI power support looks like, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, we have all the things that I just showed in terms of creating an input, creating a detector model, sending data. All of that can be done through an API, right?
Okay.
So what I'm going to show real quick here is essentially. So we have this input called create. Yeah. So what I'm showing here is essentially a couple of inputs that I'm going to create.
Yeah.
This is a different application that essentially demonstrates your HVAC system. So
Okay.
how when your temperature is increasing and decreasing in in a building, how your HVAC system should essentially trigger an action of starting your cooling system or the heating system and so on and so forth when the temperature needs to be heated up, right? So what we have here is essentially we're going to create two inputs, use them in a detector model, and then I'll show how that detector model will look like on the console for so that it can be seen visually. But what we are doing is we're going to create essentially an input that shows what an area, a floor of this building, for example,
Yeah.
could look like, and that's what inputs could it take is what is modeled by this particular input. So
Okay.
so we're going to do that here. We're also going to do, and the output will look like essentially it's a JSON document. I can show that real quick here. So the seed input looks like so.
Okay. So it's a
Essentially,
JSON document.
yeah, it's a JSON document, and it shows essentially what are the desired temperatures for this area, what is the allowed error, what is the range low, range high, different types of attributes in the JSON document that you're defining, and you're basically creating an input based on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to create one more input. Create input. Yeah. What this models is essentially as an input that is temperature sensor would receive. So similar to what you were saying, a gateway would receive, right? In your case. So it would be similar to that. So this models a specific sensor that is registering temperature readings, right? And finally, what I'm going to do from the API perspective is create my detector model. Again, you can do this, like I was saying, from the console or here. And this detector model is the one that shows the different states that your HVAC system could be in, and I'll show that on the console just so that it can be visually
Okay.
seen. But it's
So
also
all this-
go ahead.
Yeah. No. So all the state machine models are essentially JSON documents.
You are
that
correct. You'll have, and even the logic that you want to put inside the detector model is also defined in the JSON document.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so once you do that, let me go back to my browser here real quick. And what I should see here is something called area detector model. So this is the model I just created from my from the CLI, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And as you can see, there's nothing there here, but we will create an area essentially in a second here when we send the batch put API to send the input to this detector model. But before I do that, let me just quickly show you. It's a pretty sophisticated model of this HVAC system where you are in a start mode, and then essentially in most of the times it will be in idle mode. But then there would be, let me see if I can zoom in a bit here. Yeah, that's probably a bit better. Okay, so there could be essentially what you are doing is you are going into a low temperature, a high temperature threshold, then the system goes into a cooling state essentially, right? And then if it's similarly, if it's in a low temperature threshold, it's going to go into high heating state. And then once it receives inputs saying that, hey, my temperature currently from the temperature sensor that it is at this, it is reading, a certain temperature, it will make the appropriate transition back into the idle state or the start state.
That's super cool.
So, yeah,
It's great.
Cool.
So given that, just really quickly, what I can show is batch put. This is the API that I wanted to show to actually create my. What is that?
So this is triggering essentially the detector instance from the detector model.
Correct.
Once you
So
put
once
the
I
message.
do this, this other JSON that is essentially is sending it an input saying that, hey, I want to create an instance for this area. So I created this. It should show essentially no errors. So once I do that, I should go back and be able to see the detector instances for my area detector model, aptly named Area 51. So
Okay.
so
Super easy and super
so
cool, right?
so we're monitoring Area 51. That should be pretty
It's a
cool.
good
right?
idea.
Yeah.
Nothing could go wrong.
Exactly.
So Peter, did you do the same thing with all your hardware and equipments that you have? Like, did you create all these different kind of detector models and?
Yeah, well, I have only actually created one detector model,
Okay.
and looking at, understanding it better now, I would separate it out into a couple of different ones.
Okay.
So my detector model is pretty complex.
Yeah.
Because what happens with the fitness equipment is it can go from one state to the next, but there's no logical transition. It can go from any state to any state.
Okay.
So my model is pretty crazy. I don't know if we want to
Yeah,
show
we can.
the model. Or...
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can
I'm-
go there in a little bit of time, maybe.
Right, sure.
You wanna
I'm
finish it up?
done. Yeah, I
Yeah,
want
yeah.
to finish it up with just essentially showing that the state transition does also happen.
Okay.
So once I do essentially my temperature, now I want to send a temperature message saying that that I have I believe I have it as a high temperature mode.
Okay.
So my detector model would change state from idle here to, I think I probably need to change the number, but let me see. Yeah, I probably need to change the number. So what I need to do is very simple. So I need to basically change that one.
Yeah, so while you're doing that, Peter, we see a lot of equipments here,
Yeah.
right? That is super cool. So what kind of like hardware and like boards that you are using on this? Can you tell us a little bit more
Yeah,
about
sure.
it?
So that the actual hardware layer itself, I had shown this. This is, I know we can't zoom in, so it's not super easy to see. But that's our primary sensor. That goes on to what I have here, which is a representation of a piece of fitness equipment.
Sure.
Right, so this comes from Matrix Fitness. They were kind enough to lend this to us. We do a lot of development with them.
Okay.
So API development and other stuff. So I brought this with me. So this is the fitness equipment. Okay.
Okay.
This is our sensor. See if I have it kicking around here. Our battery powered sensor as well, right?
Okay.
I'm not demoing this today. I'm just demoing the single sensor. Our gateway, which I have right here. And this black box right here, it's not black but from the camera. The back is silver, but from the front it's black.
Okay.
This drives the console, so I can turn some knobs here to make the bike go faster, for
Okay.
example, right? So this all this together will allow me to do the demo,
Ah,
right?
okay.
All
Got
right.
you. So when you install it at the customer's location, it will be essentially all this equipments together that goes there, right?
That,
You're
yeah,
connecting
so
all of it.
pretend, there's 150 pieces of fitness equipment in a facility.
Okay.
We install one gateway, which is the black box right here.
Okay.
Central receiver for the facility that connects up to the cloud.
Okay.
Then we'll install maybe 100 of these onto
Okay.
each piece of the fitness equipment, and 50 of these onto the actual non-powered weight training equipment.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do all of that with an installation app. We put our own installation app together. We distribute that to installers. That works through AWS API Gateway.
Okay.
Nice.
Right, so we do all of our RESTful interfaces through there.
Yep.
Hits Lambdas in the back. Lambdas do what they need to do with the database in the back. That builds out a facility in
Yeah.
the database, right? And then there's one button on the installation app that you hit when you're done, when the installers are done, that goes up to the data, or so it goes up to a Lambda function. Lambda function tells the database, okay, for this facility,
Yeah.
take all of that information that you have in the database,
Yeah.
crunch it down into an XML file, and then the gateway itself will reboot, grab that XML file, pull it back down to the gateway, and then it'll build out that wireless network from the information that's in that XML file,
Okay.
I see.
Okay.
right? And so now the network is all built, and the last thing that the installer does is they validate that each sensor is working, go to each piece of fitness equipment, spin it up, check through the real-time feed that the data is there,
Yep.
check, then you're done for an installation.
Okay.
Nice.
So it'll probably make more sense if we pull up the architecture diagram. But before we go there, you wanted to show one
No.
last thing.
Yeah, I think we're kind of done, but let me just quickly show you
Yeah.
that this is going back to the browser.
Yeah.
That essentially we wanted to just show that it changed state, and we also got
It's idle now.
yeah, it's still idle down, but
Okay, that's great.
yeah.
Thanks for showing that, Raghu.
Yeah, sure.
So if we can go back to the PowerPoint and maybe pull up the architecture diagram for EcoFit.
Go back to the PowerPoint.
The next one. Okay. So, yeah, so you were explaining, Peter, about the left side, how we were doing all the provisioning for all these different equipments. So how does it go to, like, how does it get installed in the real facility? Like, is it like technicians go there and install it, or is it like self-provisioned? Once they install it, how it works?
Self-provision would be so great. We're working our way towards it.
Okay.
We still have trained installers who go into facilities.
Okay.
They do a really good job. They do all of the installation. They use the app. They get everything configured all the way through. You can see on the architecture
Yeah.
on the left-hand side,
Yeah.
there's two things. There's the installation app that's up in the upper left, and in the lower left, there's the actual Greengrass core. That's the gateway.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're running Greengrass core services on that gateway. So they put that all together. They hit the install button after they're done. Blup, and it's all together again. Then we're moving data in.
Oh,
Right.
wow. That's
Right.
pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
And since it's like in a zone where you have a reliable connectivity in terms of Wi-Fi and stuff, it's not like outdoor. I think you do not have a lot of challenge in connecting all these gateway devices, and you still have a continuous connectivity to the edge, right? My point is, what additional value is Greengrass
Yeah.
bringing to your architecture here?
Sure.
Because it does not seem like there is a lot of offline conditions that you have.
So we're expecting some offline conditions in the future
Okay.
where we're going to need edge processing for immediate action,
Okay.
machine learning, figuring out the state of machinery, and mixing
Oh.
signals in from other
Nice.
suppliers. So we're keeping that door open. Another huge benefit from the Greengrass core side of things is the actual deployment of the deployment and the versioning of the Lambdas themselves is taken care of out of the box.
Okay.
Without us having to cook that solution up ourselves. Right.
Okay.
So that's hugely helpful for us. And just the immediate tie into services that you get
Yeah.
from using Greengrass core is hugely helpful. So that path that goes from the Greengrass core on the left of the infrastructure, if we could bring the infrastructure back up on the screen, on the PowerPoint slide. Oh, that's mine. Let's use the other one.
You mean the PowerPoint?
There you go.
Yeah.
The actual infrastructure, yeah. So the path that goes down from the Greengrass core on the
Yeah.
left down to IoT core,
Sure.
that's super easy with what we have with Greengrass core and the software.
Okay.
So writing it was easy, which is great for us.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And also, I think we're discussing that you have a custom protocol where Greengrass is also probably helping you because you
Yeah.
are not using standard Wi-Fi and stuff between
Yeah.
all your equipment.
Yeah.
Right? Tell us
Yeah.
more about it.
Yeah, well, we built our own wireless protocol,
Okay.
which is a pretty impressive thing. It's a challenging thing and an impressive
Yeah.
thing. So there's Bluetooth, there's Wi-Fi, there's all these things. Each one of these solutions has a limitation that doesn't make it a good application for what we need to do.
Okay.
So because we need to be able to have data moving pretty quickly, we need to have 500 or maybe even more than 500 pieces of fitness equipment
Yeah.
on a single gateway, right? We need back and forth control, and we need sort of as little overhead taken by the protocol as possible.
Yeah.
So we built it ourselves,
Okay.
right? So I had a little bit of a hand in it. We have a brilliant RF engineer back on the team who's probably listening now, Carl Spaney.
Hello.
He's awesome too. The whole
Okay.
team is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And so we built that ourselves, and that allows us to just do all of this stuff, right?
Okay.
Like we can move that data. We've got a ton of space left in the packets, and when we need to be agile with that solution, we can be agile.
Okay, that's awesome. So it's giving you a lot more control into how custom you can make your devices
That's
if you
right.
run something like a Greengrass solution.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, with Greengrass, that allows us to process all that information very
information.
quickly, effectively, so on and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So we talked about how you're provisioning on the left using a mobile-based authorization, authentication, installation. So I see a lot of custom auth and cognito. So
Yeah.
are you not using like any certificate-based mechanism at all?
Well, we are using a certificate-based mechanism when we're
Okay.
talking about IoT Core,
Okay.
obviously, because we're doing deployments to that.
Okay.
Cognito makes it extremely easy when in the case of when you have to have a user login, right? So that's just kind of a straight through. We're using Amplify
Sure.
at the app end, right, and at the web front end, and then that ties right into Cognito, the user management. With the federated identities, you can do all of the permissions and everything like that. It's really, really easy, like
Okay.
out of the box, right?
Okay.
So that's why we like to use it. In the case of the custom authenticators, these are kind of machine-to-machine things that are going on
Okay.
that we have to kind of, it kind of came up that way that we had to use custom authenticators in this way to get to the APIs. This was built before we had Greengrass, right? And this is another thing that we could probably slate to be replacing
Yeah.
with certificate authentication, which is going to be more secure than our custom authorizers,
Okay.
right? As we built them themselves, there may be some security there. And then there's one key-driven authorization. This is because it's going out to trusted clients
Okay.
and consumers of our data,
Yeah.
right? So on the other end, there's the portal. On the right end, there's the portal. That's the output. Another important output is our Open API, Open Data API, and that's for system-to-system integration with our close customers and clients. We just give them a key. They use that. We can revoke the key if we need to.
I see.
Okay, that's great. And in the middle, it looks like you are also doing a lot of serverless computing
Yeah,
to analyze the data so that it's available for reporting and consumption.
that's right. Yeah, so
With
there's
all your lambdas, looks like, right?
a whole lot of lambdas in there. Lambda structures where we're going and taking a bunch of data, spreading it out into lambda workers, right? And each lambda worker will maybe process 50 messages. It's just ETLs, essentially, right? So we've got raw data ETLs into more formatted ETLs that can be displayed on the portal. And then you can see kind of in the center there, those two structures, they're building like structures in the center. Those guys are reports ETLs. At the portal, we have specialized reports that customers have indicated are really interested in. And so we generate that data specifically for those reports in those ETLs, and then each customer can have access to
Okay.
those.
So the upper section is essentially your badge data, you're aggregating, generating reports on top of it.
That's
And
right.
the lower flow is your real-time stream of data.
That's
that is
the
coming
real-time
through
stream.
IoT
Yeah.
Core and events, and it's available in the dashboard.
That's correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So it sounds incredible. So can we like see a demo, like how all these pieces work together?
Sure can.
How the
Get
rubber
that, I
meets the
guess
road?
I'm
Oh,
really
okay,
curious
so-
about the state machine that you have created. That looks like like really good piece of art.
I laid it out to
Like a
look
globe.
like that. I wanted it to make it, instead of a jumbled mess, I wanted it to look real special. What the situation there is that we have 5 states that a piece of fitness equipment will go through. State machine right now is really complicated. When I get into the demo, it's going to be much more clear, right, as to what's going on.
Okay.
But the situation is, no matter what state you're in, you can jump to another state.
Right.
And so that's why there are so many transitions. Probably what I'll do in the future, I'm going to show you guys, there's kind of state of our equipment, like the state of our relay.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's state of the actual fitness equipment itself.
Yeah.
And then there's state of the gateway.
Yeah.
And probably in the future, it's a good idea to separate all those out.
Yeah.
Right? And then interact them through different means.
Right.
Right?
So on that one, right? So we have seen some customers where what they would do is they will build a hierarchy of detector models. Maybe that's something that's applicable.
This
here.
is exactly it. Because like the gateway status is kind of like top of the hierarchy.
Yeah.
If the gateway is down, don't bother about anything else.
Yeah.
You don't have any data.
Exactly.
So if they feed into each other in that method,
Yeah.
would work perfectly for us. Yeah.
Right. So
Okay.
yeah, if we can see the demo and how this whole state machine, fits into the whole demo.
Sure. Let's do it. So could we switch back to my screen, please?
The browser. Yeah.
That's exactly it. All right, so I had shown the portal a little bit before. This is drilled into a piece of fitness equipment. Before I showed you what it looked like at a facility level and indicating like the status of each piece of fitness equipment.
Yeah.
This is drilled into a particular piece of fitness equipment, and fortunately it's the one that we have brought with us today, right? So the most important part that we should be paying attention to now is like the real-time state, because that's what IoT Events is driving for us. All right. So IoT Events is firing off MQTT, publishing to MQTT every time a new state is entered. Okay. And at the portal, we're subscribed.
Yeah.
And then we're going to change this current status under equipment event timeline. We're going to change this current status based off of the actual real-time state of the equipment. Near real-time, sometimes it's 3-4 seconds. There's some delay in there.
Yes.
But anyway, as real-time as we can get. Okay, so we have a piece of fitness equipment here. And I'm just gonna let's just stay on the browser for now. I'm gonna plug this relay into the piece of fitness equipment. I'll plug the sensor in, but I'm gonna plug it in the wrong port.
Okay.
So I'm an installer. Okay, I'm in the facility.
Okay.
And I'm plugging it into the wrong port. And this happens from time to time.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so I plugged it into the wrong port, and I say, okay, well, it looks pretty good. It looks like there's some lights blinking. Everything looks, pretty decent.
Should we go back to this view maybe instead of the browser for now?
I think we can probably just run it on the browser for now.
Okay.
Actually, maybe we should switch back.
Yeah.
Could we switch back to the screen view?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay, so
And
I'm back here. I've just plugged in my sensor here.
you
Right.
plugged into the wrong port.
And I plugged it in to the wrong port. All right. So just give me a second here. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah, give me a second here because there's a little bit of delay on the state changes. Okay. So I'm plugging it into the wrong port. Click. And that happens often. If we could switch back to my screen now.
To the browser again? Yeah.
To my browser. You can see here it says relay online, data not okay. That's bad news. Okay. So the sensor's online because it's got power. Right.
Okay.
So it's on the network. We know what's going on. We get some state delivered to us.
Yes.
But the data's no good because it's in the wrong port.
Right.
Okay, so we see that and we say, okay, fine. The installer sees that
And
right
installer
away.
sees that as well. Yeah, that's good.
Or the facility owner sees that. Or EcoFit sees that.
Yeah.
And we know what to do in that case. We say, okay, well, pull it out and put it into the different slot.
There you
Plug
go.
it into the different slot. Because I pulled it out, it went to relay offline. Now it should actually there you go.
That's awesome. It's pretty instantaneous. So
It's pretty quick.
what it is happening from the sensor, it going through the router and gateway running green grass to the cloud.
To the cloud.
Passing through IoT events and then going to the EcoFit dashboard. and that is happening like in
Matter of a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's happening pretty quickly. Yeah.
that's pretty.
So now we know, because it says on the portal, okay, relay online, data okay, we know it's installed properly. Okay. Can we switch back to the camera view? Okay. So now I pretend I'm in a facility and I'm logging into my piece of fitness equipment here. Just generally starting. All right.
Ready for your gym run, huh?
Here I go.
Yeah.
We're going to play some music.
Get my tunes going.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I can control what's going on the console from this box right here.
Okay.
So if I'm gonna bring it down to a point where it's like not actually being used. Just give me a second here.
It says, yeah, no active session.
It says no active.
Yep.
Get going on my session again. So there you go, no active session. We actually know whether or not, pretty much in real time, whether or not that piece of fitness equipment is being used.
That's awesome.
So now I'm going to actually start doing some exercise.
Let's do it.
Here we go. This is way easier than being at the gym.
Just yeah,
That's
exactly.
so easy. There's a ton of calories being burned here. And there it is, back in the state of relay online, data okay, active session.
That's
Okay.
right.
So there's a couple of good things there for EcoFit.
Yeah.
Obviously, one is the health of the network, whether or not we've installed it properly. Right? I can pull it off again. Speaking of the health of the network,
Yeah.
maybe the relay was removed. Maybe the relay was damaged. Something has happened to the relay, right?
Sure.
So I can pull it off again, and you can see if you go back to the browser, it says relay offline.
And that happened again, pretty much
Instantaneous.
instantaneously.
Pretty
yeah,
much
like-
instantaneously.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? So we've got all these states. It's like, it's good to know for us and for
Yeah.
the facility owner,
Yeah.
the relay is offline. Okay, so if there's something wrong with the connection to the relay and the console.
Yeah.
Obviously, they want it online because they bought the product.
Right.
They want that data.
Right.
Right?
Right.
There's also the indication that it hasn't been installed properly. Again, we're not grabbing data in that case. Then there's the actual status of the machine itself, whether it's being used or whether it's not being used.
Yeah.
And then you can build patterns off of that,
Correct.
right?
Right.
Is this a failure pattern? Right? Is this being used for like 5 seconds and then nothing and then 5 seconds and then nothing?
Right.
Because maybe there's something wrong with the equipment.
Yep.
And then we can even have one thing that our customer is very interested in, and I shouldn't promise anything too much right here, but is a real-time map of availability of equipment for the gym customers to check to see if the equipment's available.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, that's super cool. So it looks like, right, it will improve the customer experience so much. Like
Yes.
sometimes it happens, I go to the gym, some equipments are not working, I have to call someone, even then it might not work.
Yeah,
Now it's all proactive. Like you already know what's happening with the equipment.
that's right.
You can fix it in advance. So
That's
the
right.
customers,
If you think of it from equipment maintenance standpoint,
Yeah.
rather than scheduled maintenance once a month,
yeah,
right? Or you do a scheduled maintenance, you don't know what's going on, you go into the gym, you find 5 pieces of equipment,
Right.
yeah,
maybe 2 more visits after that to get it fixed because you need the right parts.
Yes.
Now you have a much better idea. Okay, we do have to go into this gym.
Yep.
yeah,
We know which pieces are at fault.
yeah,
Potentially down the line, if we have information enough, maybe we know what's wrong with the piece of fitness equipment.
Yes.
So that's a huge savings just there in the equipment maintenance on its own.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, it just improves not only the customer experience, it's also operational excellence for the gym,
Sure.
gym
That's
provider,
exactly
right?
it.
So, yeah.
I'll try one more thing just real quick. I'm just gonna pull the internet out of the gateway here because I want to show you guys the gateway offline.
Okay.
Now, gateway offline is using IoT Events timer.
Okay.
I see.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So we are using the timer. You have mentioned it in there. The timer, the minimum value for the timer is 60 seconds right now. That's an okay window for us. You kind of want to give the gateway some time just in case it's having failed packet delivery or something like that. See if there's a real problem.
Right.
But at some point we will see this transition over to gateway offline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, but we can just leave this for now because
Okay.
it's getting a bit of time.
That's great. So it's how even this first version of this application is working like smoothly.
Correct.
But we have this saying at Amazon, and probably the customers also believe the same, that this is just the first iteration, right?
Yeah.
What
It's
about
still
the
day one.
future? Yeah, it's day one. What about the future? Are you looking for any additional enhancements or features or capabilities
Yeah.
that will be integrated into this solution in the
Yeah.
future?
We're gonna find some more as we go along. Like right away, it would be great to be able to jump to SQS from IoT events.
Okay.
That's because just if you look at our infrastructure, we use SQS like so much.
Yeah.
We love to be able to just jump things to a queue and then have a Lambda function just kind of process it at the Lambda's leisure.
Absolutely, and that's one of those things that we certainly have that on the roadmap, and we'll work with you, define that requirement, and certainly have that get that feature out for you guys.
Cool deal.
So-
Yeah. No, and then everything else is good. I think it's up to us to be able to start building hierarchical structures out of these.
Yes.
Yeah.
And really understanding how that works.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that we are really interested in.
So on the hierarchical one, sorry to interrupt, but
No
one of
worries.
the things that we are also doing that's coming right around the corner is the ability to send the trigger action to another IoT events detector model.
Oh, okay.
So you
Yeah.
can you don't have to go through the hoops of essentially maybe going to other services and to get back to IoT events.
probably
You
go
just
to
do essentially it's a
forward and
loop
back
back
again.
into IoT events. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, that'll be also quite beneficial for you.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
I think that'd be great. Further things we're looking into, IoT analytics.
Okay.
Analytics to do a little bit more in-depth analysis of the patterns coming out of the pieces of equipment, and mixing of other signals in.
Yeah.
Because we do have some other sensors that may be coming online with our
Sure.
partnerships. And if we can pull that into analytics, and if we can pull in potentially even machine learning algorithms in there, the most important thing that we deliver right now as EcoFit, aside from our reports, is the state of the equipment. And the more accurate that gets, the more happy our customers get.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So mixing all that in is part of our future plan as well.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And IoT Analytics gives you this capability to integrate device metadata with your telemetry data.
Yeah.
And now with IoT Events as well, there is an integration. So you get the best of breed across all these different services, right? To
Cool deal.
generate more and more business value out of your data.
Right on.
What about like other capabilities? Like, are you looking for any device management capabilities? Some like device defending?
Yeah. Having actually finally sat down and read through AWS well-architected documentation and the IoT lens, which is a good document, which I recommend to everybody to read if you're working with AWS IoT. Security is going to be something that I want to focus on a little bit more.
Okay,
Right.
that's great.
But also, excuse me, that kind of fleet management, that device management, we do a lot of that ourselves, right? Through the portal, through a combination of tools, through
Sure.
direct database query. If there's something that aggregates everything together in an easily viewable and controllable platform, that's great for us, particularly as we hit, millions of pieces of fitness equipment attached.
Okay, that's awesome. So I think we covered a lot of stuff today, right?
Yes.
So to summarize, we learned how even connected devices can take advantage of edge solutions like Greengrass and embedded devices you have. You can do a lot of custom protocol conversion at the edge. You can run different local compute solutions using Lambda, right? We learned about how you can provision your devices using different methodologies. It could be like the mobile-based authorization, authentication, key-based. Then we'll also learn about how you are taking advantage of the cloud, all the serverless technologies, using the ETL solutions, taking advantage of all the IoT managed services in terms of connectivity with IoT Core, and then taking advantage of IoT events, and thinking in the future to also leverage IoT analytics and other services as well,
Yes.
right? And machine learning, we also talked about a little bit about it. So Greengrass will also help you with the machine learning.
Yeah.
So it can.
There's edge stuff
At the
that
edge
we
stuff.
could do. Yeah. Which
Right,
is very
right.
cool.
And then finally, we looked into the dashboard, how the dashboard is changing instantaneously when the devices are being made offline and connected, and
Very
that's
cool.
super awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
So this is super exciting for
And
us.
it's a global operation that you're doing, right? I mean, you have customers worldwide, and you're still able to do all of these things in a pretty nice and seamless manner. That's pretty impressive. So.
Yeah, we're excited
Yeah.
about it. Yeah. It's
Awesome.
very, very cool.
So if there will be one takeaway for our viewers before we let them go, Raghu, what will be that from a IoT event standpoint, maybe?
So I would say, build iteratively. I think it's always good to put your concept on how you want to model your states on a whiteboard or a piece of paper, kind of understand, vet it through, and then make incremental improvements as you are adding more logic and more states to your detector model. That would be my guidance in general.
That's great. What about you, Peter?
Well, I was going to make some recommendations initially about just going out and trying out all the tools and not being too concerned about it, but I think I'm going to pull it back and say check out well architected.
Sure.
This is something that I wish I had done or actually existed like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Because then I would have read that documentation and I would have gone, oh, that's how you do all these things.
Yeah.
Right. So check it out. And if you're an IoT Lens will give you the information that you need to be able to use these tools, and it'll actually highlight the tools too, because sometimes it's hard to, with all of the tools that are available, sometimes it's hard to find that tool, the right tool. So.
Right.
Okay, that's great. So we covered a lot in this session, and hope you got an idea on the different ways, approaches, and best practices. And we cannot wait to do another episode with you. So should we flex our real muscles?
This is our data.
Whatever we have.
This is as good as I can do.
Yeah.
These are my development muscles.
That's a good one. Development muscles.
Development muscle. Yeah.
Thank you, Raghu. Thank you, Peter. And thanks, Twitchers, for joining us today. And apologies for starting late due to technical difficulties. Stay with us, stay tuned, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.